Hey, what's good, y'all? It's the boy Josie Santino, and today I'm gonna break down this Pvlace and Cubeatz type sample that I just previewed. So yeah, let's start the video. Alright, so I started with this contact library. It's called the Evolution Modern Nylon. So now let me explain how I made the melody. So this is how the melody looks like. It's in the key of D minor. But the final loop or the sample is in the key of C sharp minor, so I pitched one semitone down. The whole melody, I pitched one semitone down. Let me explain now what I did. Let me mute this first. So I started with the D minor chord. Initially it was like this, but what I did was I, inverted or pitched this top note one semitone down here, so same with this chord as well. And then from D minor I moved down to A minor, and same here as well. The chord should be like this, but I pitched or inverted this note like one semitone down here. I did same here as well. And then what I did was I added the bass notes. So I added D here and A here. So that's it. And then after that what I did was I added this top melody. So yeah, let's just hear it, how it sounds. Alright, for the effects I started with EQ. So I cut a little bit of the lows and boosted a little bit of the low mid, and I boosted a little bit of the high mid. And next I have Fruity Compressor. These are my settings. I used Compressor just to gain a little bit of volume and give it a little bit of punch. And then I used Compressor for distortion. I use this preset, and the weight knob is like 12%. Next I have Valhalla Vintage Work. I use this vocal air preset, but I played with this mix knob and decay knob. And next I have delay here, and these are my settings. And finally I have an EQ, just cutting a little bit of the lows and a little bit of the highs. So the next sound that I have is called Noir Pure. It's the contact library, and I used this gloomy preset. And for the melody, what I did is I just copied the same melody from the guitar and I just pasted it here. And one thing that I forgot to tell you guys, what I did in the guitar melody was like I pressed Alt and R, and then I just turned this velocity knob a little bit to the left, which randomizes the velocity. I did it in the guitar and I also did it here. I'm not gonna do this because I already did that, so yeah, I'm just gonna cancel this. So for the effects I have an EQ first, cutting a little bit of the lows, cutting a little bit of the highs, and then I have Valhalla Vintage Verb, and these are my settings. And then again I have an EQ, cutting a little bit of the low and a little bit of the high. Alright, the next sound that I used is called RB Rickenbacker Bass. It's a contact library, and these are the notes that I used here. I'm just using the bass notes. For the effects I have Compressor and this preset, and the weight knob is like 8%. Then I have an EQ, boosting a little bit of low and cutting a little bit of the high. So the next sound that I used is called Mellotron, and I used this Strawberry Flutes preset. So let me show you the melody. So this is the melody of the flute, and yeah, these are the notes. So it's pretty simple, nothing special. So I just left some gap at the beginning and then just went continuously, and again I left some gap here as well, and then just I went continuously. And it's I'm just keeping the same rhythm in both the parts. So yeah. Alright, so for the effects I have an EQ, just cutting a little bit of the lows. Then I have a compressor. These are my settings. Again, I'm using compressor just to give a little bit of the punch and increase the volume a little bit. And then I have the Compressor. I have this preset, and the weight knob is like 12%. Next I have Valhalla Vintage Verb. I put this vocal ear preset, and then I play with the mix and the decay. Next I have delay. These are my settings. And finally I have an EQ again, just cutting a little bit of the lows and a little bit of the highs. Alright, so let's hear the flute melody by itself. The next sound is mellotron again, and I use this preset, and it's like a patch sound. So yeah, let's hear it. So yeah, I just copied the chord progression, not even the top melody, just the chord progression. For the effects, firstly I have an EQ, cutting a little bit of the lows, a little bit of the highs. Next I have Fruity Compressor, and these are my settings. Again, I'm using it for the punch and giving it a little bit of volume. Next I have Valhalla Vintage Verb. I'm using this vocal air preset. I played with the mix and with the decay. So next I use this mid-side matrix. So I boosted heavily the sides because I want this pad to sit on the sides, so that's why I did that. And finally I use this EQ, cutting a little bit of the lows and cutting a little bit of the highs. So the next sound that I used is vocal one-shot sample, and I'll show you the notes. So these are the notes for the vocal one-shot sample, so let's hear it. So for the effects, firstly I have this shaper box. I'm using this volume thing here and this preset, and I'm using length like 1/4 and mix is like 69%. And then I use this pan thing here, this preset, and mix is like 70%, and length is again 1/4. Secondly, I have an EQ, cutting a little bit of the lows and a little bit of the highs. I just want the mid frequency because I want this vocal sample to sit like on the background, not on the front. So yeah. And lastly, I have mid-side matrix. I'm boosting the sides because I want this vocal sample to sit more on the sides, so that's why I did that. Next I have Analog Lab 5. I have this preset, and this preset is from Loophole preset bank, and again I copied just the chords here, so let's hear it. And then after that, what I did was I rendered that chords into audio here because it was taking too much of CPU. So that's why I rendered that sound into audio. So for the effects, I have an EQ, cutting a little bit of the lows and a little bit of the highs. Next I have Valhalla Vintage Verb, vocal air preset. I played with the mix and decay. Next I have mid-side matrix, again boosting the sides because I want this pad to sit more on the sides. And lastly, I have an EQ again, cutting a little bit of the lows and cutting a little bit of the highs. And finally, I have this texture sounds that was from a sample pack. So I'm gonna let you hear just a little bit of that. So for the effects, firstly I have shaper box. I'm using sidechain, and I'm using this preset, and the wet knob is like 69%. And the next thing I used was pan in shaper box and this preset, and the mix knob is like 70%. And finally I have this EQ, cutting a little bit of the lows and cutting a little bit of the highs. And after that, what I did was I started arranging the sample. So for the first 8 bars I have all the sounds, and for the second 8 bars I just removed the top flute melody, and then I started placing all the individual sounds one by one, so that if a producer uses my loop, that producer can have all the stems. And after that, what I did was I rendered this whole sample into a wave audio, and then again I added some effects. So firstly, what I did was I linked to this channel. I just turned down the gain a little bit. I added RC20 and put this vinyl 3 preset. I played with the noise, wobble and distort. Next I have mid-side matrix. I boosted a little bit of the side just to make it more stereo. And finally I put this FabFilter Pro L just to control the peaks. And then finally I added the master effects. So for the master effects, I have an EQ first, cutting a little bit of these harsh frequencies, and then I boosted a little bit of the bass and this mid. Next I have an EQ again, cutting a little bit of the low mid, you know, cutting this mud or the muddy frequency. And then I have an EQ again. I use this preset, and finally I used the FabFilter Pro L limiter just to, you know, max out the volume, or just to, you know, make it loud. So yeah guys, that's it for today. I hope you like this video. Please hit the like button and subscribe button, and don't forget to follow me on Instagram. And yeah, see you in the next video.